I was sitting just like this. I was reading something and it was like a firecracker went off or something like that. And all of a sudden sitting in this brilliant orange blaze, the body wasn't there, the personality wasn't there, the room wasn't there. And it was just absolute brilliance. Peace, a very deep profoundness, stillness, truth, clarity, bliss, timelessness. And after some period of this, I was going to progress through this. It was like a fulfillment. So I talked to you earlier about the restlessness. All of that was, it's like somebody dumped water on me and I just, it's like that bliss where there's nothing more needed, there's nothing to do. And then I was going to progress beyond that. It was a kind of portal. And just as I was going to do that, this being of light kind of emerged, you could say, from this original brilliance, suggested that this wouldn't be fair and there was more work to do. I literally had, or figuratively had, my foot over the border already. I was just about, and then this being kind of put this in the mind. And that gave me pause. And with that pause, everything re-imploded.
Welcome to the Celeste of All podcast. Today we have a fascinating guest joining us today, Dr. Anoop Kumar. In medical school, Dr. Anoop had a near-death-like experience that completely changed how he saw himself and the world. This NDE brought him some remarkable insights about our health and healing secrets, which is exactly what we will be exploring in today's podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Anoop, and we are so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm happy to be here with you.
So can you tell us what was your life like before you had your NDE, the near-death-like experience?
Yeah, before that, I would say I was a restless kid and I had a lot of time on my hands. I always felt like there was much more time than there were things to do. And no matter what I did, I could never fill vast expanse of time that seemed to be there. Regular stuff, sports, school, stuff like that. I was pretty bored with school. I found that it was pretty insufficient. I found that people say a lot of things without really knowing what they're talking about. Everybody's kind of parroting each other. And, this kind of general ennui and restlessness, I think, was there.
What were your beliefs like? Did you believe in reincarnation and all of that?
I always consider them. I can't say I believed them. I always knew that standard stuff in school was way too simplistic and way too incomplete and didn't make sense. Definitely, I heard about reincarnation when we were studying philosophy and spirituality and religion and those things. And it seemed true to me, but I didn't know. And I didn't have like something that I held to. And I said, yes, reincarnation is definitely true. But it felt like there was some truth there. I could put it that way.
And so especially you came from the medical background, right? You're a doctor, you studied medicine. First of all, when you said you were restless and you had a lot of time and you were bored, I was just thinking, like, you had a lot to study. Didn't you sit and study anything?
Regular school K through 12, I found pretty boring. I guess there was a lot, but I think it's such simplistic stuff we teach our children. And it's not because I'm particularly intelligent. I just think we make kids think in very backward ways that make learning difficult. And then it seems like some people are intelligent and some people are not. But in fact, I think kids are much deeper and more profound and can learn much more than adults. But we impose the adult way of learning, which is already a confused mind, on kids. And then it seems like a lot. I don't think it's actually a lot. Most of it is like repeating what other people have learned. That's what they want us to do, is repeat and regurgitate the same stuff. So I don't think it's a lot. In medical school, what I found is that it's a lot of information, but it's the same principles. The difficulty is in the volume of information. But the difficulty is not in the subtlety. There's no subtlety to the information. It's the human being is made up of a bunch of parts. That's the fundamental assumption in medical school. Just like you put a car together, you can put a human together with some protons, neutrons, and electrons, which is nonsense. It's not true. It's a radically incomplete and dangerous model in my view. And there's nothing difficult about it. It's just building volume on top of that, So I think true knowledge, when you get to it, that is what fills your time and goes beyond time in a sense.
Have you heard about that conspiracy theory that says that everything that they teach in schools and in medical schools are by the Rothschild? I don't know if they're going to cut my video or whatever, but have you heard that, where they say that they're just doing all of this to confuse you and to dumb you down?
Well, I don't know if that's why they are doing it, but it definitely works. We are definitely dumbing down the population. And then what happens is when you reach certain ages, you have to kind of rebel and you have to throw a tantrum, right? We call this the terrible twos. We call this teenage rebellion. We call this midlife crisis. All of this is simply evidence of the insanity of our educational system and generally in society. And then we need something called spirituality and mysticism. And then we need something like alcohol and drugs. And then we need food and we need sex all the time. And all of this stuff is because we have lost that initial awareness we had when we came into this world. And education, by either purposefully or accidentally, it cannot be entirely accidental, ensures that we remain forgetful. And not only that, it ensures that if you start to think differently, that you will be medicated, or you will have a disease, or you will be unintelligent and you will fail school. When you just look at it plainly, you just say, this isn't right. This is not an education system. Learning is natural for every human being. Learning is natural. To the extent that it feels forced and unnatural, there's something wrong in our system.
True. There's the book that I keep reading. It's A Course in Miracles. Apparently, it's channeled it's Jesus being channeled. So in that, it says that the reason why we are having all of this sickness, loneliness, depression, etc., is because of the confusion that's in us. And I feel like that's the best thing that education does. They just confuse you with so much information which is not exactly needed. At the end of the day, like you said, it's just very simple.
The highest purpose of our educational system on earth, and it's global now, it's not different, it's really the same. The highest purpose of that is to know how people in our society think, okay? Think about this. The highest purpose, the very pinnacle of our education system, the highest you can go with that is to really understand, this is what our world thinks, right? You can get the MD, you can get the PhD, you can get the degrees, and what you learn from that more than anything else is, this is how people think. This is what people think is possible. This is what we think is not possible. This is what we do to sound intelligent. If we say this, we sound unintelligent. That is the greatest knowledge a person can receive from the educational system. Now, all the other things, like I've learned many things about diagnosing a disease and treating, which I use in emergency medicine. That is also useful, but even that has a ceiling. Like I said before, there's a belief that you can adequately model you and me by putting some balls and sticks together that we call atoms and molecular bonds. That is insanity. We should question that. We should say, it is insane that we believe that. How can we believe that we can adequately diagnose and treat and cure and heal disease with that model? Well, guess what? We're not curing and healing many, many diseases, right? That's the educational system. That's the ceiling of the educational system. So whether you went to a lot of school or not, whatever degrees you have, understand, don't take the knowledge that you got through your degree too seriously, all right? More than anything else, it is a snapshot of how our world thinks. So use the good in it, as we do in the hospital, as I do in the hospital, but never believe that that is what is true. That is simply a perspective.
Has this perspective helped you in your field? How do the other doctors look at you?
They look at me generally as the wellness guy, kind of vague, amorphous, just like wellness in our society. It's this kind of vague, yeah, it's good. Nobody says wellness is bad. In fact, it has the word good in it and well in it. You can't really argue with it, but nobody is quite really sure what it is. And so same with me, I'm like the wellness guy and people come approach me with certain questions and things like that. But when you get really into this stuff, what you see is that this is social in nature. This whole idea of the mysticism here and the spirituality there, it's really about a transition that's happening on our planet, which is very much social. And as much as people may not like it, it's very much political, right? This is a socio-political force. Remember these words: society, politics, religion, mysticism, philosophy, science. We invented these, right? This is not part of the natural environment. Nature doesn't say, you know what, mysticism is just weird. I need some science. Right? Nature doesn't say,
Yeah.
you know what, that's conspiracy theory. That's just a way out there. Let me see what's the mainstream saying. Nature doesn't give a damn. Nature's like, I am what I am. Call me in whatever words you want, but I am who I am, right? I think there's a little bit of that. I think we tend to think, especially now, in the last few decades, spirituality has really taken off and wellness and all this stuff. And I think it's time to actually go beyond that now, believe it or not. I think we have to open those labels up so wide that they include everything and they're no longer a label, a field in life. So this is a transition, a global planetary transition that is socio-political in nature and that we frame at Health Revolution in terms of health, because health is everything, is wholeness.
True. Beautifully said. Can you tell us about your near-death experience?
Yes. So this was in medical school and I was home at my parents' house for a break and was sitting in my bedroom. And then just like that, it was like an explosion went off. Really strange. I was sitting just like this. I was reading something and it was like a firecracker went off or something like that. And all of a sudden, sitting in this brilliant orange blaze, the body wasn't there, the personality wasn't there, the room wasn't there, and it was just absolute brilliance. Peace, a very deep profoundness, stillness, truth, clarity, bliss, timelessness. And after some period of this, I was going to progress through this. It was like a fulfillment. So I talked to you earlier about the restlessness. All of that was, it's like somebody dumped water on me and I just, it's like that bliss where there's nothing more needed. There's nothing to do. And then I was going to progress beyond that. It was a kind of portal. And just as I was going to do that, this being of light kind of emerged, you could say, from this original brilliance, suggested that this wouldn't be fair and there was more work to do. I literally had, or figuratively had, my foot over the border already. I was just about, and then this being kind of put this into mind. And that gave me pause. And with that pause, everything re-imploded. And there was the room again. You know, my body was there, the chair was there, and everything had shifted pretty radically at that point.
Do you know how long you were there for, or in the room for?
I don't know. If I had to guess in our time, in linear time, I would say it was probably minutes, because I don't remember the time of day changing, but I'm not sure.
What if you were just hallucinating? Why did this feel like so real to you?
Well, I think we're hallucinating now. I don't distinguish between illusion and real. I think we made up the word real. I know this is a potentially dangerous conversation. There's a lot to understand here. Can't just say these things lightly, and it can't be communicated in just a few minutes. There are a lot of implications in life, in society, that we have to understand. However, I have to also abide by what I know is true. I don't believe in these words.
So when someone says it's a near death experience, right? Usually the person dies. Did you have any sort of health problems or something for you to say that this is what happened?
So what I remember is sitting and reading and something catching my interest and focusing on it before this happened. And my guess is that our energies are always moving in a certain direction throughout our lifetime. We come into this lifetime with a certain kind of energy. It changes according to many things, and it keeps on going in that way. It just so happened that at that time, it had reached a particular zenith, you could say. I don't know, here in the US, we have certain dry days in the summer, and you'll see these signs that say, be careful today, or the likelihood of a forest fire is higher today. If you drop just a match into a brush on that kind of day, it just immediately will catch fire, right? So I think it was something like that the energies were at a certain level. And what happened in that moment, I just focused a little bit. And so wherever that energy was, it just got kind of laser sharp for a second. And that lit a fire and it just went off. And that's something that a person would understand once they start to feel their energies, and you can feel like the zenith and the culmination of that. But that's what it feels like in retrospect.
Every time I want to get like this sort of enlightenment or awakening, it seems like everyone who goes through near-death experiences are the ones who get that. So sometimes I wish I get that, but that is very traumatic. But yours sound like a better story. It's just like a near-death like experience where at least I just go to go there, have a peek, and then come back. So that is a good one. Do you think you are enlightened? Do you think because you saw that all of your questions were answered and your restlessness suddenly just dropped?
First of all, I've told the good part of my story. I haven't told the difficult part of it. So it's not all a peak and good stuff. So just to qualify that. Secondly, this is one of those things where in that moment, everything is clear, and that clarity comes with us for sure. But here's the thing, this is also a relative world, right? So that clarity can be there, but that clarity coexists with confusion, and it coexists with an entire range of energies, beliefs, systems, ideologies, patterns, trauma, lifetimes. All of that is happening on Earth, right? So this was a particular state and a particular place where all of that wasn't there. So it can be experienced as is. And basically what happens is the faculties of the human being open up. Now, those same things that are blissful in that place, in that state, can actually be very difficult here. And that's why it was quite difficult for me for a number of years afterwards. The work, you could say, at least for me in my lifetime, the work is helping this transition to go from a particular frequency, a state of energy, to another one. And you can see it happening in the world now, right? You can see the financial systems, you can see in the political systems, you can see it in health, in the pandemic, the healthcare systems, everywhere. You can see the transition happening. These are the gross manifestations of a very subtle frequency change that's happening. That's how I see that. It's all part of a transition. It's not like enlightenment is seeing the light and then only being in that light all the time. You also have to be in the varieties of shades of that light, which is what worlds are, which is what dimensions are. And to me, there's nobody who is enlightened as a period. And I know many people may disagree with that, but I just don't believe in that. We are all in the process of enlightening. The shift that's happening in the planet is the enlightening process. And all of us are receptive to that to different extents based on where we are in our journey, right? So no matter who you might say, some religious figure, some spiritual figure, I don't believe in an enlightened person. I believe in people who are enlightening through this process.
So after the NDE, right? How did you integrate with your normal life? When I started to watch all of these videos and stuff like that, I work in supply chain and I work in this number game and all that. And then I see that my beliefs are completely different from the beliefs of the people around me. And it seemed like for me to be accepted, I would have to look spiritual. You know how they wear like linen clothes, they don't brush their hair. So it's like there's a particular kind of look for spiritual people and people with these kind of beliefs. And I look different, you look different. We work in this corporate kind of thing. How did you integrate all of this together?
One great, I think, benefit I had is that I grew up as a child with people who had dedicated their life to enlightenment. Like these are basically Swamijis, monks in the Hindu tradition who were always talking about the nature of reality, always talking about who we are, always talking about the tendencies of the mind, always exploring them, often struggling with them, often getting into kind of these cul-de-sacs and going in circles, saying one thing, doing another. You can see all of the inconsistencies. And I grew up with that. And I was very fortunate that all of that came before this rather than after this. Because when this kind of opened up, when the system opened up, I could see how people had struggled with different things and why they had said certain things, why they didn't say other things. And one of those things, like I said before, is this whole idea of spirituality, this whole idea of religion. We are moving past that. There is only life. And nature is the best example. Nature does not care for our science, for our philosophy, for our religion, for our fashion, for our idea of mental wellness or mental illness. Nature says, say whatever you want. I am as I am. And I think that is what we have to model, in a sense, if we have to model anything, or at least that's what we have to look to for real inspiration. Because we all wear certain kinds of clothing, right? You wear the clothing you're wearing because it kind of makes you feel right. It feels right for some reason to you, right? This feels right for some reason to me. And for people at a certain stage, orange clothing feels right. There is an effect. Color is a frequency. In fact, that orange is the exact same orange that I was in, that brilliance. And I recognized that as soon as I came back. I said, this is the color I've seen my whole life that people were wearing that were on this path. It was like various shades of this color. And there's a certain illumination that comes with that color. And so everybody is doing things for certain reasons. And people that have very distinctly chosen what is called a spiritual path will therefore have very distinct behaviors, distinct clothes like white or orange or yellow. They will say certain kinds of things. They will avoid certain kinds of things. And that's all part of their journey. And each of us is on our journey. We may be coming at it through another route. So we may wear different clothes, so it's, again, all of this is a super important question that you asked. And I'd like everybody to really think about this. Where we are now in the journey of the planet is going beyond all of these categories, including spirituality. That is really important. Going beyond the idea of spirituality and to say, okay, spirituality got us here, but what is it really trying to say? If I like spirituality and then I don't want to engage with that stuff there because that's not spirituality, that's a problem. I don't want to engage with politics. I don't want to engage with finance. I don't want to engage with, then that's a limitation in me. because there is only life and there is only the way that we as a planet think about life. So we have to engage. We are part of that process and we will be part of this transition one way or another.
Wow. I really love that answer because there's something that I had been confused with. With my podcast, I consider this a spirituality podcast. But at the same time, I'm also religious because I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic Christian. And I also watch videos of prophets. They're like, I didn't know they were apostles and like Christian apostles, prophets. They talk about everything in the Bible, which is the rupture and the revelation. And then when I watch that, I feel like maybe I'm not spiritual. Maybe I am religious. Maybe I should bring those people on the podcast, right? So then I get confused where I feel like spirituality is the ultimate. But when you say that it's not even spirituality, it's beyond spirituality, that is beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we go back to the confusion of education. That's why this question comes up. The confusion is not just in school. It's from, we're adults now, but it's from the adults that were with us because they were confused. And their confusion didn't just come from school. It came from religion. It came from the idea of spirituality. It came from philosophy. It is a planetary confusion. It is a species-wide confusion. It is not, the educational system is just the formalization of that confusion, you see? So you experience some liberation in just hearing this, right? That is, imagine like a million of those little wake ups. That is the enlightening process where we say, wow, like who cares what people say about religion? Who cares what they say about spirituality? Who cares what they say about wellness? Who cares what they say about health or healthcare? What is it actually, right? Not just the paths that others have taken. Thank you to all the others who have taken the paths. You have brought us here, but we are not going to keep following those paths for where we have to go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can you tell us then, once you were there, right? You said you saw this light being. Can you describe that light being? Who do you think that light being is? Good question, right?
It's very difficult to describe because, so imagine that all there is brilliant light. All there is, I would say 360 degrees, but it's not even 360. It's within, it's without, no boundary. It's all there is brilliant, beautiful, pristine light. And then it's almost as if like an aspect of that kind of partially emerges from that light. It's almost like if I had a bed sheet here and I put my hand behind it and I pushed forward, you would just see kind of like an outline of something, right? You wouldn't actually see a distinct like being or figure or anything like that. It was kind of like that. It was just brilliant light. And then kind of like an aspect of that light seemed to partially emerge or something. But it was clear this was a distinct being who was just, to put it mildly, they knew much, much more than me. I just laugh when I say it because you can't really put it into words how much more they knew. And then it was not speech. They instilled the thought in the mind. The thought appeared, you could say. It was actually like a feeling that came into the mind, like a form that came into the mind. And the translation in English is, this wouldn't be fair. There's more work to do. And let's get to it kind of thing. And so
Did
there
you
it
feel
was.
like the being knew you and you knew the being when you met? Like, did it seem like you guys knew each other?
The strange thing about this experience is ongoing. So even now it's happening. I know it's strange, but we're all aspects of a much deeper, vaster what we are. And so this is ongoing, almost like a grandfatherly or like it's not even that. It's just something.
Do you still feel the being's presence in life then?
Yes, when I attend to it, this being is not different from the light itself. And the light is everywhere. The light is everything. The so-called physical objects of our world are constructed out of, I guess the best word would be mind. And that mind itself is a kind of energy. And that energy itself is a particular frequency of light. And this light, therefore, is everywhere and is of the nature of all things, is of the nature of space. Space is made from this light. Time is a particular vibration of this light. And so everything is about how you use your attention and place it on things. That it gets into a much bigger conversation.
After you came back from the NDE, you must have been confused about the whole thing, right? How did you try to make sense of it? Or when did you decide to start talking about it and say that this is something legit? This is something that needs to be shared. And why did you feel that way?
Immediately, I was not confused. Immediately, it was just, I could see the body there. I was not with the body, though I was close to the body. I was around the body. And it was the room, and everything looked totally different. The nature of perception had changed. It was probably more just wonder and like peace and beauty and depth of like, okay, like all those thoughts I had were actually on the right track in a sense, is that what I had to say, what I wanted to say in the world reached such a point, became so tremendous. And the best way to gain entry into that conversation was to talk about this. And that's how I started talking about it. Because actually I was talking about consciousness and the nature of reality for a while before I talked about this. And you reach relatively few people, and then people see you as kind of like, oh, he's a spiritual person and he's going to have a spiritual following, and I just was not interested in that. And that's when I started putting this in terms of health, and I started to see, well, people really not only want to hear, but they should hear. Actually, I reconsidered my own position, that by staying away from it, I'm actually holding back something that could bring a lot of clarity, to people. And so that's when I put those together and started talking about it a few years ago.
That's actually brilliant. In order for people to click on a YouTube video, the thumbnail has to be good. So your
Yeah.
NDE
Right.
is NDE like
Yeah.
experience is the thumbnail. So they will
Yeah.
click on it, and then then you drag them into Advaita and
Right.
all of the other
Right.
things. Makes sense.
Like, wait a second, he's talking about health. I thought we were talking about mysticism.
Yeah. So when you said that you became more sensitive, right? Did you start hearing voices? Because a lot of people who have had these experiences, they start hearing voices or seeing visions and stuff like that. Is it something like that?
That had happened since I was a kid. I used to hear, so we were members of what's called the Chinmaya Mission, which is an organization that teaches Advaita Vedanta. And they're in Maryland, in the United States, near Washington, D.C. And the leader of that was a Swamiji named Swami Chinmayananda. And so he used to give lectures all the time. In my childhood, we used to attend them and we would hear them on tape about nature of reality, nature of mind, nature of the world, and all of these things. And I got to a point, I remember, where I'd say, and then I would ask questions in my own mind, right? I would ask questions and I would just hear like expositions of answers on this all the time. And so I was always having this kind of, not a debate, but this dialogue of like building, then what about this? And then how's this? And then what about this? And how's this? And so in my mind, this was always, so if people saw me from the outside, many times I'd just be like, like in my own zone. But that's because I was having these conversations. And I always, for some reason, felt it was impossible, but also important to try to put this in English somehow. And I was always, even before I knew I would be doing this like publicly, I mean, I'm talking about like 5th, 6th grade when I'm starting to think about this, starting to have these conversations. I always felt very compelled to try to put it in English in some way.
When people, now that you know that after you die too, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, is that what you think? Probably think like that, or no?
Yeah, in the sense, I mean, I guess it depends on the person because it depends on the lifetime you're living. If you're living in a way that you're super attached to everything that is happening in your lifetime, then death will be difficult because you feel like this is what defines who I am, and what defines who you are is being let go. And so that becomes very difficult. If you realize more who you are and what this world is and who your relations are, who your family is, who your friends are, and how do they fit in the greater context of this journey and what's happening, then death is not an end. Death is just like going from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday. It's not necessarily a cutting off because everything has bloomed and reached a ripeness where now Tuesday has to come because Monday is on its way out. It's twilight of Monday, right? So that's a very different experience than believing that only Monday exists and everything's got to happen on Monday.
Makes sense. Now that you know this, when you deal with patients or when you deal with your patients, right? How is it different? Do you recommend surgery? Don't recommend surgery? Go them, ask them to do meditation? Like, what's your strategy now that it's changed?
It's more in how you are with patients that are afraid of death, right? So the main thing is if somebody's afraid of death, if I'm afraid of death too, it just compounds the fear of death. It doesn't matter what you say. There's that energy there. It's fear plus fear equals 2 fear. It's just the way it works. But if somebody's afraid of death and the other person is not, then you can bring a steadying presence to that. So it doesn't change where I say surgery or no surgery, but what it helps do is explore the person's values, right? What does this person value in this time of their life? And they may have been afraid to explore that before because a family member might want this person might want that. They may have even believed that I have to do A, B, and C. But if somebody has no judgment of you, and if somebody sees you as a being of full capacity and a being who is not going to, like the end of all things is not going to happen in 5 minutes, but just sees you in that moment, no before, no after, and says, hey, what really matters to you? Who are you really? I don't put it in that words. I don't say, who are you really? But that's what I'm saying. What really matters for you? Like, where do you live? Where is your awareness living? Where is the place that you are coming from? What does that look like? And how does that now meet the choices that are in front of us? That's a different conversation.
Why do you think people get sick now? Do you have the answer to that?
There's so many levels of answer to that, and that's why I said that this is about a planetary transition and looking at all fields and all sectors. In one sense, life expresses in different ways. You have water that expresses as a tidal wave. You have it expressing as a mist, right? Life expresses in different ways, and it's in different ways in different dimensions on different planets. And every planet is going through its evolution, just as we go through an evolution in our lifetime. All right. In another sense, if you look specifically at Earth, we have a lot of toxicity. Our food is toxic in general, right? It's a lot of, I remember seeing an ad in a magazine by a food company or a chemical company that says, we make oranges brighter. We make apples more red. I was thinking, I don't want my oranges brighter. Like who are you to know how orange an orange should be? Like, you don't know more than nature.
Yeah.
That is insanity. The fact that any ad company thinks that humans should believe that is just an insanity. And that represents the thinking behind our food system, right? And the same thing for everything. If you look at the water that we drink, if you look at the school system, mind and body are not fundamentally different, right? If we see a difference in the mind and the body, it's actually a difference in our own system. We have created a wall within ourselves, and then we see one thing called mind, one thing called body. If you miseducate the mind, you will miseducate the body. The body will do things that don't work for itself if the mind is that way also. We call this mind-body flow theory. The body is the flow of the mind. There are so many very practical socio-political reasons, right, that we must address. That we must change for us to become a healthy society. We talk about all of this. We talk about health discovery, right? The position I take is that we don't know what health is in this society. And this actually came to me in the ER in my first year of training. It was a very busy night with a lot of traumas coming in and stab wounds and heart attacks and gunshot wounds. I remember this nurse running in with a baby that wasn't breathing that we had to resuscitate. And it was just like, when you think it couldn't get any worse, now like the sickest of the sick, this tiny baby. And I remember in this tornado, it was like somebody pressed pause and everything went still, crystal clear, absolutely quiet. And then these words came to my mind, almost like when those was implanted in my mind earlier, and that it was like, we don't know what health is, right? It was so clear that we had no idea what we're doing. Narrow the frame and we're experts. We know exactly what we're doing. Emergency medicine, resuscitation, clear algorithms, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not speaking in that sense. Look at the big picture that a person comes in an acute emergency. We help them get better. They get discharged from the hospital in 3 or 4 days. They enter the exact same toxic system that caused the problem. 2 months later, they're back with the same thing. We put another Band-Aid on it. It's a revolving door. We are an insane society and we are not speaking up about the insanity. And that's really what got me to shift into this health perspective and talking about all of this as health, because it is health, right? If we understood what health was, there would be no spirituality. I'm not trying to offend a lot of people who identify with spirituality, but please understand, if we knew what health is, because health is heal. Heal comes from wholeness. This is the etymology of the word. If we understand and experience wholeness, is there anything else to say? No. Because we don't understand wholeness and don't understand health, therefore we invent spirituality. We invent philosophy. We invent religion. We invent wellness. We invent well-being. We invent all of the other things. And that's why you can see this dumbed down version of health on magazines, right? You have the six-pack, you have the yoga pants, you have the electric car. We have an electric car, by the way. I have friends and family who wear yoga pants. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that the idea that is what health is, the branding of it is not the thing. You can do all the opposites of that and be more healthful, more whole in yourself, right? So this is what was clear, that we don't know what health is. And therefore, what we have to do is discover what health is. It's really important. It's critically important that we understand this today, that we have the humility to say, you know what? We don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying I know what health is. Look at me. And I'm saying, I don't know what health is. I know what wholeness kind of feels like, but I also know there's no end to that, right? As an individual, we're always walking the path of healing. We never say, well, I'm whole. There's a period. Just like we never say, well, I'm enlightened. Here's the period at the end. It's all done. I've reached the end of the internet, right? No, it's not like that. Healing is wholing. It's becoming whole and becoming whole and becoming whole. The wholeness that we already are in our deepest nature, our partial aspect is always becoming.
That's beautiful. What is Health Revolution about? This is what you created after all that you've experienced and come up. Before that, I wanted to ask, what happened to the baby? Is it a sad ending? Okay, cool. So let's get to the health revolution. Tell us, what is health revolution about?
Health Revolution is exactly what I said. It is about discovering what health is. It's about putting across gently to this world, no matter how expert we are, no matter how proficient we are, expertise of any kind in healthcare, outside of healthcare, in spirituality, outside of spirituality, it doesn't matter how expert we are, how professional we are, how much experience we have, we cannot say that, yes, I know what health is. People disagree with me on this. I've heard people tell me, you can't say that because it sounds arrogant or because it sounds like, it's not speaking to what we really are. Look, in our deepest nature, we are already of the nature of health. There's no doubt about it. Every single one of us, with or without a diagnosis, please know that you are whole already. You have always been whole. You will always be whole. Your wholeness can never, ever be taken away from you because it is your nature. And this nature expresses in particular ways, which is what we call a human being, right? A human, a form. The being is formless. Being is infinite. The human is a form of this infinite. That is what we are. We are, in a sense, beautiful paradoxes in that we are absolutely whole, always have been, always will be. And we are this form looking through these two eyes and these ears and say, oh, what is this world? And who am I after all? And what's going on here? And that is the process of healing that every single being is on. If you have any kind of form, physical, mental, or otherwise, we are on this journey. And so we are always discovering what health is together, through each other, with each other. And that is what we are communicating at Health Revolution. And that means we address every single thing, every single thing. There is nothing that falls outside of health. The transportation sector serves health. The energy sector serves health. The housing sector serves health. Healthcare, of course, is supposed to serve health. Every single thing we do naturally serves wholeness, right? Because they're all partial approaches to wholeness. When we understand this, that is an enlightening society. Then we start to tap into a power that is unimaginable. If you really start to get this, if we can let our defenses down and say, well, I know what health is. We all kind of know. There's no doubt about it. Let's also leave a little room for saying, I don't fully know. I know, but I don't fully know. And I'm on this journey of healing. And let me see what I discover. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And all of a sudden, everything starts coming under that umbrella. Everything starts getting integrated. That's what we do. Communicating that itself is a huge thing. That's a big part of what we're doing now at this stage of Health Revolution, is just trying to put this across in a gentle way, in an opening way, so people can open up. Even the greatest experts in their fields, no matter what it is, can open up and say, you know what? I don't know. And immediately that capacity and that intelligence will start to come in more. And then what do you do in the world? We talk about pathways, which we talk about pneumocore. Pneumocore is nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. And in each of those categories, if a person starts to open up or activate each of those engines, what they will do is experience more and more what health actually is. They'll start to discover the actual true depth and power of health. And of course, it'll show up at the physical level. It'll show up at the mental level. It'll show up in the society. It'll show up in every sector. That is the journey we are on. And that is what Health Revolution is stewarding.
In the spiritual community, they talk about that the entire planet has to heal. If we heal, that's when all of the natural disasters would end, the fights would end, everything would end. And that healing process is everything that you mentioned. So when I started this, first of all, I didn't even like the terminology healing because I felt like, why should I heal? I'm already perfect. I'm not broken to heal. But then when I started identifying things which is spoken about in the spirituality community, which is like, why do you judge others? It's probably, or why you mean, or why are you fighting with someone else? It's out of fear. And why is this fear happening? It's because of some trauma that you went through in your childhood, maybe. So then you heal the subconscious part of it. Then when you talk about, then they talk about the food, the fact that everything is, they've put the poison and all of that, then the food comes there. So like you said, once we actually recognize everything to do with health and just being healthy, you do become one with the source. You connect back to source. So it's very difficult to, speak about it, but you've condensed everything and spoken about it in such a logical manner that every non-spiritual person would actually listen to it, but it's actually the whole of it. Can you tell us, like, who would be someone who would actually come for it, right? At what stage would someone want to join Health Revolution or take up the courses that you offer?
Many different people. So one is, if you just look in terms of healthcare, if you realize that, oh, healthcare is not really showing us how to heal. Healing is nothing to do with we are broken or we are wrong. Healing has to do with the nature of wholeness. Wholeness is the cosmos is whole, right? The cosmos isn't saying, well, I wish I were a little bit bigger. The cosmos is the cosmos. Everything is everything, to put it very simply. And we are aspects of this moving forward. So healing is becoming whole. That's all it is. There are no connotations of I am wrong, I am diseased, I am broken, I can't do this. This is not a pronouncement of any kind. This is simply acknowledging that our capacity is so amazing that we are simultaneously whole and simultaneously approaching the whole. And this process is called healing. That's all. Just like a wound, if you split a wound, if you have a laceration, you get a disintegration, right? Healing is it's becoming whole again. The wound fills in and closes, right? It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with this. This is just the state of the world, right? We are all reflections of the state of the world. It's not that I did something wrong and this person did something wrong and that person. No. Hey, this is the world. Hey, we're here. Now we are on this process of healing. Healing, it's not that we have to heal. It's that healing is happening. Everything we're seeing now in the world is the process of healing. Sometimes abscesses come up that puff up with infection and they open up and everything drains out, right? Sometimes volcanoes, they can't contain the pressure and they blow everything out. That's all part of the healing process. And so the question for us is not like, how do we cap the volcano? Because then you still have pressure inside. What are you going to do with that, right? The question for us is, how do we align with this healing process? How do we gain deeper insight into this healing process so that we can guide it and it can guide us, right, to the best outcome? That's the process. That's what we're talking about.
When you spoke about the laceration and then it becoming one, do you know that we are all, like, there's this thing where there's this hype around everybody is going through ascension? Do you know? So
Yes.
we're going
Yes.
through the ascension,
Yes.
right? So in that, I don't know what that means. I'm beginning to listen to books where they're talking about how Jesus ascended. And what they said is that after Jesus died, Jesus was able to come back into his body. So that's called resurrection, where his soul, he was able to. So apparently he learned it from the temple of Isis, and Isis also did that to Osiris, like all of that. The soul was able to come back into the body. And then after that, the ascension happened where he was able to disintegrate the body and become one with the rest of the cosmos. So it's like the same thing where you said the laceration and then you become one with the rest of your body. So I guess when the complete healing process has got nothing to do with how many years you live, because died at the age of 33, or the abs you have, or how fast you can run, or anything, but it's about being one with the rest. Like, you heal yourself completely, that you just merge with the rest of the cosmos.
So a big question there is like, what does healing mean to me? That's one of the most powerful questions that we can ask in this time on this planet. And everyone should just ask this question. You don't have to look for an answer, but what does healing mean to me? Does it mean I live forever? My body lives forever? That might not be so fun after all your friends die and all your
Yeah,
family
no.
dies. Does it mean I feel good? Does it mean merging? The way you talked about Jesus, we are already of this nature of wholeness. Anything is possible. We can do anything, okay? In a sense, we can do anything. Now, the question is, when we look at a particular frame, a particular dimension, particular lifetime, a particular week or two of our lives, the question is, what gives meaning to the expression, to that space-time dimension? What gives meaning to it? Is it to do a certain task? Is it to recognize peace within yourself? Is it to X? Is it to Y? Is it to Z? That is healing for that person. Is it that the body should be in pristine condition? For everybody, it's different. And your answer this week may be different than 3 years down the line. And that's okay. That's the nature of healing, because you have to remember, at our base, we're already whole. Everything is already everything. All capacities are in this potential that we are, right? So if somebody decides at age 33 that they're going to leave the body, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have merged into the source and that's it. They may exist in a different way in another dimension. It's just not how we recognize it as existing, right? Ultimately, if we want to think about it, what this intelligence does is it expands and it contracts, right? And you see this in all the cycles of time. You see it in the week that expands and it comes back, right? You see it in the month, you see it in the years. The years are not linear, by the way. That's a mistake that we are making in our timeline.
Oh, Robert Grant spoke about it. So he said that we are going like this, right? So we've got the Aquarius and Pisces and all of that, but then the yugas go backwards. So we were in Pisces, we came to Aquarius, so we are going backwards. So it's like, what if time is moving forward and backward at the same time, which is what.
Not only moving forward and backward, but the years have to recycle. Once the sun rotates, moves around the Milky Way, it kind of resets, right? Just like our months measure 12 waypoints around the sun, right? That's each month is a waypoint around the sun. The years measure waypoints of the sun around the center of the Milky Way. The sun is also orbiting the Milky Way. And so that's what years represent. So there is no linear time. That's again our confusion, our educational confusion of linear time. Everything is cyclical. Everything. Lifetimes are cyclical, weeks are cyclical, everything. Ideas are cyclical, fashion trends are cyclical, seasons are cyclical, everything is cyclical. And so you could say that in a sense the greatest cycle is simply the expansion of the cosmos itself, what we might call the Big Bang and the expansion, and then the contraction itself, right? And then the expansion again and the contraction again. That is what this intelligence does. And so there's always a place of us that is an aspect as vast and vast and vast as that is also part of this healing process, becoming whole again and becoming whole again and becoming whole again.
Beautiful. It's such a fascinating conversation. I'm so happy that I got to speak to you and I can go on speaking about this forever with you. You have a wide range of knowledge on a whole lot of different things. So I can go on and on talking about it. Can you tell us where we can find you?
healthrevolution.org. That's where it is. And these are fascinating conversations. There's so many places to go with these conversations. We always like to make it practical also. Okay. What do you do in your life now? And that's when we talk about pneumocore. Pneumocore is basically the first two letters of nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. And one thing you'll see, Tanya, is that if you're a person that says, I have this disease and I want to get over it, or I have this other problem, I want to get over it. I'm not interested in that. I just want wellness. I'm not interested in that. I just want performance. I'm not interested in that. I just want my friendships and relationships to work. I'm not interested in that. I'm spiritual. I want enlightenment. It doesn't matter what it is. Across all ages, across all stages, across all interests, it's nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. This is what heals the human being, meaning this is what aligns a person with the greater change and transition that is happening now. That is what is most important. Imagine a process. First of all, it would be so great to heal from a disease, right? Or to feel better. Just let off 30% of stress. Your life experience improves so much. Imagine if those things were actually side effects. Imagine if the things that we really want, that we consider amazing, are side effects, right? What would the main course be? That's what we're talking about. Let's not keep our vision small. Of course we want stress relief. Of course we want to get over the diseases. Of course we want all of those things. But there's also so much more on the table for each person. There's so much more happening right now. That is the main course that we would like to serve, that we would like to eat together with you, share this meal with you. And that is activating nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. So that's the course that we have. It's a 28-day course, 1 week each on each of these engines. 1 week on nutrition, 1 on movement, 1 on connection, 1 on rest. Nutrition of the mind, which is what we're doing now. Nutrition of the body, moving your emotions, moving your thoughts, your creativity, moving your breath, moving your range of motion, and of course, exercise, connecting with ourselves, connecting with others, connecting with the planet, and resting both while asleep, but more importantly, resting the mind even while awake. So please activate your 4 engines. Check out the course. There's a discount code that we're giving for your listeners. Code is EVOLVE. If you go to healthrevolution.org/28 days, and then at the checkout, you can type in the code EVOLVE for a discount. Why? Because there is a tremendous shift happening on this planet, and we are all part of it one way or the other. Let's align together and shift the state of this world to healing.
One more question for Health Revolution, for the people who take the course, right? What kind of problems from the people who have taken the course and the testimonies you've received, what all problems have they been able to heal? Or what kind of problems, if someone faces, would this course be able to solve?
It again depends on the person. It's very specific to the person. So some people say their stress has gone down a lot. Some people say they've got so much more clarity and purpose in their life. Some people say they never knew that their emotions were affecting their physical body this much, right? Some people say it's been easier to manage their hypertension and their type 2 diabetes. So it really depends on where a person is in their life. And the other thing to realize about Numacor is that, first of all, it's not rocket science, right? It's not a pill. I can't patent nutrition. I can't patent movement. If you can patent it, it's probably not the right thing, right? These are just fundamental engines that drive human health and sustenance. Every human being needs these things. And to the extent that we don't activate these, that's where we experience difficulties in our life. And it's just like a good book. If you read it at 10 years old, it'll be different at 20, 30, and 40. Activation of moving your emotions and your creativity is different now than if you do it 24 months from now, right? Your breath, the way you breathe will change as your beliefs change. So 10 years from now, it'll be different. So Numacor is not a, hey, I've done this and I'm good. Now what? This is simple stuff. Now what's next? No. Just like enlightenment. Hey, I'm enlightened. No. Hey, I know what health is. No. It's again, it's the cycle of time. It's again, and it's again, and it's again. And it's the spiral. So there is an ascension with the spiral where we keep on moving and evolving. So the simple answer is it depends where you are on that spiral. But wherever you are, if you open up, there's something that you will take away from this. Aside from that, there is an energy infused in the course, aside from all the content and stuff like that. So if you just sit there and be open, there will be changes that happen.
Oh, that's beautiful. On Instagram, if you check, there's going to be a whole lot of new age healers in there, which is amazing too. But for us to get who are putting up courses like this, who doesn't have the information or that wide variety of everything that is out there, right? So, for example, when someone says, a new age healer says that you don't need any vaccinations, it's not like I can take it. So it's beautiful and it's brilliant that someone who is a doctor, who's done all of this, who is working with clients, patients, and you've seen that, and you've also seen the other side. So a course from yours is worth so much. It's amazing that you've put this out. And like you said, healing is, I think you can never say you're 100% healthy. You've got people who've got six-pack abs and then they die the next day too. So what is health, right? You can never be completely healthy enough. You can always go one step more the next day. You can always keep working on your health and healing and becoming whole. So this is beautiful. And the best part is Dr. Anoop is giving us a discount code. All the links to the course and all the other details will be there, put in the description as well. Make sure to go check it out. And this is beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Anoop, for all that you're doing for humanity, for coming on the podcast and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.